1953, Watson and
Right.
Crick elucidate the structure of the DNA molecule. People had known a bit about DNA before. They were getting suspicious that it had something to do with the transmission of hereditary information. And the search was on. And I tell the story of the search and the competition between the research groups. It's really a fascinating tale in running up to the publication on April 25th, 1953, of a short 900-word essay in Nature. The greatest ideas can sometimes be expressed very succinctly, and this is one of those cases. Watson and Crick published their proposed structure for DNA, but I think an even more important development came 4 or 5 years later, when Francis Crick, working on his own, proposed what he called the sequence hypothesis, where he suggested that the chemical subunits of the DNA molecule running along the interior of the twisting helix. The twisting helix is made of sugars and phosphates, so that's the sugar-phosphate backbone. But on the inside of the molecule are what are known as the bases. And the arrangement of those bases, he proposed, it provides information for building the protein machines, the proteins and protein machines that keep cells alive. So he essentially proposed that the bases are functioning like alphabetic characters in a written text, or we would maybe say today, the digital zeros and ones in a section of software, which is to say it's not the physical or chemical properties of these chemical subunits that give DNA its function, but rather it's their arrangement in accord with an independent symbol convention, later discovered and now known as the genetic code, that allows the DNA to store and transmit information for directing the construction of the proteins. So we have something in the cell. This hypothesis was not the kind of thing that could be confirmed with a single experiment. It took 7 or 8 years as scientists working on both sides of the Atlantic were able to elucidate the larger, what's called gene expression system, or the system of protein synthesis. But in fact, what they discovered was that DNA it does contain information in a digital or alphabetic form, and that information is directing the construction of protein machinery. So that would be something like our contemporary CAD/CAM technology, where called computer-assisted design and engineering, where an engineer might sit at a console, write code. Code will go down a wire, be translated into a machine language that can be read at a manufacturing apparatus and then used to construct an airplane wing or a section of an automobile or a garage door or whatever it is. So information directing the construction of mechanical parts. That's what's going on inside the cell. It's a complex information storage, transmission, and processing system in even the simplest living cell. How do you rearrange simple non-living chemicals so that they produce the complex information-rich biopolymers that are a necessary condition of producing life? And there are these models in Origin of Life studies called self-organizational models, where the idea is that either the bonding properties between the constituent parts of the, say, DNA will determine the arrangement of the individual constituent parts of the DNA, or that some sort of external source of information passing through a system will cause things to self-organize. But energy alone does not produce configurational negative entropy, or also known as functional information or specified complexity. That's to configure things properly in a specific way to achieve a particular outcome or function requires information. And again, information is the province of mind. Energy and information are not the same thing. Energy typically blowing through a system will be will cause a dissipation of information, will increase entropy and decrease information. There are systems where you can push energy through a system and create a kind of simple symmetric order. But symmetric order, like, you know, if you drain a bathtub, or if you have a vast wind blowing in off the Gulf of Mexico, a tornado might result. So you can produce simple order from energy, but not highly configured, specific forms of information. I used to illustrate this with my students. I'd have two Coke bottles fastened together with a plastic fastener, and I'd have blue dye and sparkles in the Coke bottles, and I'd shake them like this to create a vortex. So the energy going into the system would create nice symmetrical order, but the little sparkles never spelled Steve Meyer is your favorite professor or something. So energy can produce simple order, but it doesn't produce specified complexity or information. And so the idea of self-organizational models in the origin of life, I've always said, they do a good job of explaining what doesn't need to be explained. What needs to be explained in biology is not simple order, but rather complex, specified information. And it's you're right, I've never really thought about it. The fallacy is the same as the fallacy that drove alchemy, that energy alone could produce configurational negative entropy.